I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places you could be tonight, chose to be here with me, and for that I am forever grateful. This, the YouTube channel that is hated by the far left and the Democrats. This channel is the one that they've been trying mercifully to try and take down and destroy. And every week going on YouTube talking about how this is it. This is your final countdown, Ducote. You're done now. I'm still here, a thorn in their side and living rent-free in their heads. Folks, midterms are just a few days away. Matter of fact, they're next week on Tuesday, and they could not get here soon enough. And yesterday, Joe Biden gave a speech. He delivered his remarks at the Union Station in Washington, D.C. on democracy and the upcoming midterm elections. I think it's very important that everyone of voting age knows exactly what he said. I'm sure many of you did not watch the speech. You've not read the speech. And chances are you don't give a damn about what he had to say. But I believe it's very important, at least to my audience, that you know what he had to say. Because he's saying it to the Democrats and the liberals, and they're believing this shit. And this is why it's important that I go through what he said and I share it with you so that you can see for yourself the hypocrisy and the lies in this man's speech. Because that is what's on the ballot Tuesday. He starts with, "Good evening, everyone. Just a few days ago, a little before 2:30 a.m. in the morning, a man smashed the back window and broke into the home of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the third highest ranking official in America. He carried his backpack, zip ties, duct tape, rope, and a hammer. As he told the police, he'd come looking for Nancy Pelosi to take her hostage, to interrogate her, to threaten her, to break her kneecaps. But she wasn't there. Her husband, my friend Paul Pelosi, was home alone. The assailant tried to take Paul hostage. He woke him up and wanted to tie him up. The assailant ended up using a hammer to smash Pelosi's skull. Thankfully, by the grace of God, Paul survived. All this happened after the assault, and it's hard to even say. After the assailant entered the home, he was asking, 'Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?' Listen closely now. Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol on January the 6th, when they broke windows, kicked in doors, brutally attacked law enforcement, roamed the corridors hunting for officials, and erected gallows to hang the former Vice President, Mike Pence. It was an angry mob, enraged, been whipped up into a frenzy by a president repeating over and over again the big lie that the election of 2020 had been stolen. It's a lie that fueled the dangerous rise in political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. Even before the January 6th, we saw election officials and election workers in a number of states subject to menacing calls
physical threats, even threats to their very lives. In Georgia, for example, Republican Secretary of State and his family were subject to death threats because they refused to break the law and given to the defeated president's demand to just fine him 11,780 votes. Just find me 11,780 votes. Election workers like Shane Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, were harassed and threatened just because they had the courage to do their job and stand up for the truth, to stand up for our democracy. This institution, this intimidation, this violence against Democrats, Republicans, and nonpartisan officials just doing their jobs are the consequences of lies told for power and profit. Lies of conspiracy and malice, lies repeated over and over to generate a cycle of anger, hate, and even violence. In this moment, we have to confront those lies with the truth. I don't even think he knows what the hell that means, which we'll get into here shortly, if you haven't already figured it out. Basically, what he's describing is the way the Democrats act and the liberals all across this country. But let's continue on. The future of our nation depends on it. My fellow Americans, we're facing a defining moment, an inflection point. We must, with one overwhelming unified voice, speak as a country to say there's no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America. Wow. Whether it's directed at anyone, no place, period, no place ever. I speak today near Capitol Hill, near the U.S. Capitol, the citadel of our democracy. I know there's a lot at stake in these midterm elections, for our economy, to the safety of our streets, to our personal freedoms, to the future of healthcare and Social Security and Medicare. It's all important, but we'll have our differences. We'll have our differences on opinion, and that's what it's supposed to be. But there's something else at stake, democracy itself. Oh, and I think he actually did this. He went, democracy itself. I'm the only one who sees it. Recent polls have shown an overwhelming majority of Americans believe our democracy is at risk, that our democracy is under threat. They too see that democracy is on the ballot this year, and they're deeply concerned about it. So today, I appeal to all Americans, regardless of party, to meet this moment of national and generational importance. We must vote knowing what's at stake and not just the policy of the moment, but the institutions that have held us together as we've sought a more perfect union, and also that is at stake. We must vote knowing who we have been, what we're at risk, and what we're at risk of becoming. Look, my fellow Americans, the old expression, freedom is not free. It requires constant vigilance. From the very beginning, nothing has been generated or guaranteed about democracy in America. Every generation has had to defend it, protect it, preserve it, choose it. That's what democracy is. It's a choice, a decision of the people, by the people, and for the people. The issue couldn't be clearer, in my view. We, the people, must decide whether we have fair and free elections, and every vote counts. Earlier today, there were donuts inside the Oval Office, and I wanted to have donuts, and I sat down, and there was my dog, and my dog wanted a donut, but I didn't want to give my dog a donut, so I just petted my dog, and my buddy Harder came in, and I said, "Hey, how's it going? That sounds like a Mexican name, but I don't think it was him, and I don't know what actually happened to him. But you know, my son Bo was in he was in Iraq, and he died serving in the country over there. Wait, I'm sorry, that he didn't say none of that shit. That was from another speech. Let's continue on. We, the people, must decide whether it's going to sustain a republic where reality is accepted, the law is obeyed, and your vote is truly sacred. He did say that. We, the people, must decide whether the rule of law will prevail or whether we will allow the dark forces that thrust for power put ahead of the principles that have long guided us. You know, American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refused to accept the results of the 2020 election. If he refuses to accept the will of the people, refuses to accept the fact that he lost, he has abused his power and put the loyalty of himself before the loyalty of the Constitution. And he's made a big lie. An article of faith in the MAGA Republican Party, the majority of that party. The great irony about the 2020 election is that it's the most attacked election in our history. I don't think he's ever read shit about our history. If so, that wouldn't have been in the speech. And yet, yes, he did repeat that twice, and yet. There's no election in our history that we can be more certain of its results. Every legal challenge that could have been brought was brought. Every recount that could have been undertaken was undertaken. Every count recounted, confirmed the results. Wherever fact or evidence had been demanded, the big lie has been proven to be just that, a big lie, every single time. And when I used to get in a swimming pool with my grandkids, they would come along and rub my hairy legs, and they thought that that felt really, really nice. And did you know that Kamala Harris, the president of the United States, is actually part Indian with the feather, not the dot, I think, or it could be the dot, not the feather. Is it the feather and not the... Anyhow, what I was saying, you know the thing, man. The extreme MAGA element of the Republican Party, which is a majority of that party, as I said earlier, but it's the driving force. It's trying to succeed where they failed in 2020, to suppress the right of the votes and subvert the election itself. That means denying your vote to vote and deciding whether your vote even counts. Instead of waiting until the election is over, they're starting well before it. They're starting now. They've emboldened the violence and intimidation of voters and election officials. Don't mind the fact that when President Obama was running for office and I was his vice president, there were members of the Black Panther Party that showed up at polling booths over the head so they didn't vote. About it. It's estimated that there are more than 300 election deniers that are on the ballot across America this year. We can't ignore the impact this is having on our country. It's damaging, it's corrosive, it's destructive. And I want to be very clear. This is not about me. It's about us. It's about what makes America, America. It's about the durability of our democracy and our hot dogs. And I don't understand why they call it a hot dog when it's not made of dogs. It's made of pigs, so it should be called a pig, something that you eat. And it doesn't make any sense to me. And why do we call it a hamburger when a hamburger is actually meat from a cow, I think? And did I tell you that my president of the United States, that wonderful lady, you know the deal, man, right? Come on. Let's be clear about this. For democracies are more than a form of government. They're a way of being, a way of seeing the world, a way that defines who we are, what we believe, why we do what we do. Democracy is simple and fundamental. We must, in this moment, dig deep within ourselves and recognize that we can't take democracy for granted any longer. With democracy on the ballot, we have a member we have to remember these first principles. Democracy means the rule of the people, not the rule of the monarchy or the money eater, but the rule of the people. What's happened is the opposite of democracy. It means the rule of one person, one interest, one ideology, one party. To state the obvious, the lives of billions of people are affected now, and tranquility have been shaped by the battle between these competing forces, between the aspirations of the many and the greed and the power of the few, between the people's right of self-determination and self-seeking aristocrat, between the dreams of democracy and the appetites of everything. What we're doing now is going to determine whether democracy will long endure, and in my view, is the biggest of questions. Whether the American system that prizes the individual bends towards justice and depends on the rule of law, whether the system will prevail. This is the struggle we're now in, a struggle for democracy, a struggle for decency and dignity, a struggle for prosperity and progress, a struggle for the very soul of America itself. Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us. We must remember that democracy is a convent. We need to start looking out for each other again, seeing ourselves as we the people, not as entrenched enemies. This is the choice we can make. Even though undividing the living shit out of this country as your president, and I hate anybody that supports Donald Trump, and I like Krispy Kreme donuts better than Dunkin' Donuts. Did you know they have this apple fritter and it's really nice? And I get it when I get an ice cream cone. When my handlers allow me to go out and we go down the street over here, right here in Washington D.C. It's really cool. And I get an ice cream cone and I can lick it. And I can lick it like my dog licks my hairy legs. He likes to lick my hairy legs. And I lick this ice cream cone the same way because it looks really cool. And the people in the ice cream shop seem to think that that Camilla she's your president. And did I tell you that she's an Indian? A dot, not a feather? I think or feather, I'm not. You know the deal, man. Come on. There's been anger before in America. There's been division before in America. But we've never given up on American experiment. And we can't do that now, even though I'm living experiment that you can have somebody as your leader that has dementia and doesn't know what he's saying or doing. And that I think my wife's right over here. Hold on. Am I the president or the which one? She's my vice president. But we never given up on the American experiment. We can't do that now. The remarkable thing about American democracy is this: just enough of us, just enough occasions have chosen not to dismantle democracy, but to preserve it. We must choose that path again. Because democracy is on the ballot. We have to remember that even in our darkest moments, there are fundamental values and beliefs that unite us as Americans, that we must unite us now. What are they? Well, I think first, we believe the vote in America is sacred, to be honored, not denied, respected, not dismissed, counted, not ignored. A vote is not a partisan tool to be counted when it helps your candidate and tossed aside when it doesn't. Second, we must, with an overwhelming voice, stand against political violence and voter intimidation, period. Stand up and speak out against it. We don't settle our differences, America, with a riot, a mob, or a bullet or a hammer. Yeah, he actually said that. It's in the speech. We settled it peacefully at the ballot. We have to be honest with ourselves, though. We have to face this problem. We can't turn away from it. We can't pretend it's just going to solve itself. There's an alarming rise in the number of people in this country condoning political violence or simply remain silent because silence is complicity. To the disturbing rise of voter intimidation, the tendency to excuse political violence, or at least try to explain it away, we can't allow this sentiment to grow. We must confront it head on now. It has to stop now. I believe the voices excusing or calling for violence and intimidation are a distinct minority in America, but they're loud and they're determined. We have to be more determined than that. Thank you. And this coffee, it's funny. It smells just like the last little girl that was here in the White House with the Girl Scouts. I think it was the Girl Scouts, or it could have been the Cub Girls or the Brownies, or anyhow, you know, it was some girls in clothes, and they were underage, and I was sniffing their hair, and that's what this coffee smells like. I think I'll drink some. All of us who reject political violence and voter intimidation, and I believe that's the overwhelming majority of the American people, all of us must unite and make it absolutely clear that violence and intimidation has no place in America. And third, we believe in democracy. That's who we are as Americans. I know it isn't easy. Democracy is imperfect. It always has been. But you are all called to defend it now. Now. History and common sense tell us that liberty, opportunity, and justice thrive in a democracy. At our best, America is not a zero-sum society, or for you to succeed, someone else has to fail. A promise in America is big enough for everyone to succeed, every generation, opening the door and opportunity just a little bit wider. Except for on our southern border, where I allow that door to be wide open because there are Chihuahua dogs that need to come to America that have no place in Mexico, that they're safe from the drug cartel. So the little Chihuahuas have to come across, you know the deal. They can even swim right across the Rio Grande there. If the main people on the horsebacks with the Border Patrol ICE people, or whatever they call them, you know, don't whip them with whips, those poor little Chihuahua dogs don't deserve that. Every generation, including those who have been excluded before, we believe we should leave no one behind, because each one of us is a child of God, and every person is sacred. Well, except if you want to have an abortion and get rid of the baby, because that's not sacred, and that's not a child. That's just a blob of something that's forming inside the woman, and we can't take away that right. And have you ever seen one of those things? It's when my son was killed over in Iraq, and when he was fighting the Taliban, and they said, you know, we're going to get you, and they did. They got my son Bo. Is that true? Then every person's right must be sacred as well. Individual dignity, individual worth, individual determination. That's America. That's democracy. And that's what we have to defend. Look, even as I speak here tonight, 27 million people have already cast their ballot in the midterm elections. Millions more will cast their ballots in the final days leading up to November 9th. 8th, excuse me. Yes, that's actually on what he said. And for the first time, this is the first time since the nation election of 2020, once again, we're seeing record turnout all over the country, and that's good. We want Americans to vote. We want every American voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. We know that many states don't start counting the ballots until after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases, we won't know who the winner is of the election for a few days, until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots in a legal and orderly manner. It's always been important for citizens in the democracy to be informed and engaged. Now it's important for a citizen to be patient as well. It's how it's supposed to work. This is also the first election since the events of January 6th, when the armed, angry mob stormed the U.S. Capitol. I wish I could say the assault on our democracy ended that day, but I cannot. Even though the only person that was shot and killed was a Republican conservative military veteran, but because she was there, I took away her status as a veteran. And and did you know that when Nancy left recently to go over there to what's the name of that state over there? In Californication, they were fornicating, and I think it was with a young man. I'm not. Anyhow, as I stated here today, there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, attorney general, secretary of state, who won't commit, that will not commit to accepting the results of the election that they're running in. This is a path to chaos in America. It's unprecedented, it's unlawful, and it's un-American. As I've said before, you can't love your country only when you win. There is no ordinary year. So I ask you to think long and hard about the moment we're in. In a typical year, we're often not faced with questions of whether the vote we cast will preserve democracy or put us at risk. But this year, we are. This year, I hope you'll make the future of our democracy an important part of your decision to vote and how you vote. I hope you'll ask a simple question of each candidate you might vote for. Will that person accept the legitimate will of the American people and the people voting in the district for him or her? Will that person accept the outcome of the election, win or lose? The answer to that question is vital, and in my opinion, it should be decisive. And the answer to that question hangs in the future of the country we love so much and the fate of the democracy that has made so much possible for us. Too many people have sacrificed too much for too many years for us to walk away from the American project and democracy. Because we've endured our freedoms for so long, it's easy to think there'll always be with us no matter what. But that isn't true today. In our bones, we know democracy is at risk. But we also know this: it's within our power, each and every one of us, to preserve our democracy, and I believe we will. I think I know this country. I know we will. You have the power. It's your choice. It's your decision. The fate of this nation, the fate of the soul of America lies where it's always does, with the people, in your hands, in your heart, in your ballot. My fellow Americans, will you meet this moment? We just need to remember who we are. I tell my grandkids all the time, when my legs are hurting and they're rubbing Ben Gay on my legs and it feels tingly, and it starts creeping up towards, that area. And I tell them, don't go too high because grandpa's, my grandpa might not like that. And I don't want to get that on my pee-pee because it might burn. So I tell them to just, what I tell them, just, it's the thing, man. Come on, man. We just need to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we do together. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. May God bless those standing guard over our democracy. Thank you, and Godspeed. That, my friends, with a little bit of satire, was Joe Biden's speech. So there are 7 things about that speech that I'd like to bring to your attention. Number 1, the attacker, Nancy Pelosi husband, was not a conservative, Republican, MAGA, any fucking thing. He was a liberal, nudist, illegal alien with a mental disorder. That's right, Nancy. Your husband was attacked by an illegal alien. sadly. Number two, Joe, come on, man. Hillary Clinton denied the 2016 election and to this day claims she still won. Are you going to call her un-American like you're calling Republicans? I doubt it. Stacey Abrams in Georgia, the same thing. Repeating over and over, the election was rigged. The election was stolen. She was a legitimate winner. Are you going to call her un-American? I doubt it. In fact, damn near every Democrat member of Congress claimed that Donald Trump lost to Hillary Clinton. The election was rigged, stolen. Trump was not a legitimate president. And they're still spewing that bullshit today, 6+ years later. Are they un-American, Joe? Doubt you're going to call it that. Number 5, Congresswoman Maxine Waters incited violence against Trump, his administration, and anyone who supported Trump. And where were you when that happened? Did you speak up against Maxine Waters? Did you say don't incite violence? Did you say that's not right? Did anybody in the Democrat Party speak up against Maxine Waters and say this is not okay? No, they did not. Antifa and BLM don't vote Republican. They're not conservatives. And you can take that to the bank. But when they were rioting, looting, burning down police stations, police cars, stores, attacking innocent people, where were the Democrats on this violence? Where were they? Did any of them go to a microphone and a camera and say, this is not okay? Stop this? Did they? If they did, please share it with me in the comments to this video. Put a fucking link, for crying out loud, showing me where I can see a member of our Congress trashing BLM or Antifa for what they did, or Maxine Waters for what they did, or Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams for what they continue to say today. Show it to me. You can't, because it doesn't exist. So basically, your speech proved one thing that's believable. You, sir, are a hypocrite, along with your entire administration and the Democrat Party. Not to mention a liar by repeating the false claim, and you even did so again yesterday, that your son Beau died while serving in Iraq. Folks, if you're not aware of this fucking thing that he keeps telling people, his son Beau did serve in the military. His son Beau died right here in America of brain cancer. But he keeps telling people he died serving in Iraq. That's his son. The other one is Hunter Biden, who, by the way, is the biggest crook ever known to mankind, getting a pass by the FBI and the Department of Justice. But, we won't go there. Fucking insanity is what it is. All right. Wow, that smells like a little girl's hair. Oh, that was Joe's bit. The New York Post is reporting that the Biden administration directed the Democrat mayor of El Paso, Texas, not to declare a state of emergency over an immigration crisis that recently saw more than 1,000 migrants a day released in the border city. Thousands have been released there. Mayor Oscar Lesser has been urged by at least 3 city councilors to declare an emergency. but admitted during a private phone call that the Biden administration told him not to. He told me the White House asked him not to, Council member Claudia Rodriguez told the outlet. An emergency declaration would open the city and county up for more state and federal funding to open more migrant shelters, according to the Post. Lesser told the Post in a separate statement that I don't bow to pressure from any side, adding that he makes decisions based on current circumstances in the best interests of the citizens of El Paso. A White House official told CNN the administration spoke with El Paso to express the government's support, but did not ask for an emergency declaration. But Lesser appeared to acknowledge White House influence as of September 27th, City Council meeting, CNN reported. The White House has asked at this point for us not to do that, he said, adding that he also wouldn't support it. He also said the government would continue giving El Paso money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Biden has been hammered by Republicans for not doing more to stop undocumented illegal aliens from crossing into the United States, and his administration is carefully avoiding phrases like border crisis, the New York Times reported. El Paso itself calls the situation a migrant crisis. That began in 2018. The crisis recently spiked in a sudden surge that saw the number of migrants, and let's just call it what it is, illegal aliens, spiked in a surge in the city from 250 to over 1,000 every day. Once the migrants, aka illegal aliens, are released to El Paso, the city gives them food and water, shelters them in hotels, and helps them to their next destination, according to its website. The city has spent $8.86 million on the crisis this year. With the federal government, just over $2 million of that, according to city data. The city came close to declaring an emergency in May, but officials reversed course, saying it wouldn't make much difference in funding levels, the Post reported. Folks, I just report this silly shit. This official acknowledgement that the U.S. military personnel are back in Ukraine comes as the latest sign of U.S. support for Ukraine's military. The U.S. has sent several shipments of arms to Ukraine, and some outlets have reported U.S. intel has helped Ukrainian forces target and attack specific high-value Russian targets, including vulnerable warships and generals. Defense officials said there have been several of these inspections, but didn't specify when they began. The defense officials' comments come after the U.S. State Department announced a plan to prevent U.S. and Western provided weaponry from ending up on the black market or be captured by pro-Russian forces who could use them to develop countermeasures, propaganda, and conduct false flag operations. That's right. Let me dumb this down a little bit in case there's some Democrats or liberals that are watching tonight's show. And of course, we know there are. Biden was praised by all you idiots for pulling us out of Afghanistan in a hasty manner, in a manner that was so chaotic that it got more American troops killed just in that evacuation, and it got more American citizens killed, more Afghans that were helping us and part of our bringing democracy to the country killed. And then he left thousands of Americans behind to figure their own damn way out of the country or be killed by the Taliban. And he left billions of dollars of military equipment for them, the Taliban, to do as they wish. That guy, Joe Biden, did that. What do you think about the fact that he's got our forces, our U.S. military, on the ground in Ukraine? Do a little bit of history. Look it up, what happened in Vietnam. We just had people on the ground observing, and then it grew into this horrible fucking war. You think it's possibility that some American forces are going to be killed, whether indirectly or not, by Russian forces? And this thing turns into an all-out brutal fucking conflict involving U.S. forces having to defend themselves against Russian invaders, and or possibly turns nuclear, for crying out loud? Does that bother you Democrats and liberals at all? No, you don't. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother you one fucking bit. You're so goddamn clueless about what's going on outside of your little bubble world that it doesn't matter to you. All that matters is that Joe Biden's your freaking hero, and you believe all the shit coming out of his mouth and the Democrats' mouth. The defense official said a U.S. embassy has found the Ukrainians to be very transparent and able to support inspections thus far. When asked what the U.S. Department of Defense personnel could do inside the Ukraine, the defense official said Department of Defense personnel are assisting various equipment needs, but otherwise our role is to support our civilian agency counterparts if they should request or assist as they support the Ukrainians. When asked how close U.S. personnel have gotten to the front lines during these inspections, the defense official said, I'm not going to get into specifics, details on locations or where these inspections have taken place. Where's the outrage, Democrats and liberals? Check this out. Russian missiles can reach any fucking part of Ukraine, and they are. So there is no front line. They're attacking the whole damn country. So Joe Biden removes our military from Afghanistan. Let's repeat this. Let's remember this. In a hasty, unorganized chaos that resulted in even more U.S. troops being killed, then left behind billions of dollars in military equipment that flowed right into the arms of those that we've been fighting. And now, this has slipped under the radar with little to no coverage of U.S. military personnel on the ground tonight in Ukraine. Shit that makes you go, what the fuck is going on here? You think liberals can't get any scarier or say any more stupider shit than they already have? I got one for you. Yeah, they can. The View. Yeah. Co-host Sonny Hostin compared white suburban women voting Republican to roaches voting for Raid. And that was today. And it outraged her fellow panelists, some of them. During a discussion about the upcoming midterm elections, the hosts discussed major issues likely to affect voters' decisions heading into the ballot box. What's also surprising to me is the abortion issue. I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican, she said, appearing to refer to surveys showing white women backing Republicans in 2022. It's almost like roaches voting for Raid, right? Co-host Alicia Farah Griffin quickly interjected as the two women began talking over one another. Farrah Griffin said that her comparison was insulting to the voter, while Hostin continued to rip into GOP-backed women for going against their own self-interest. It was yet another incendiary remark about the left-wing ABC host about conservatives, who's also attacked Black and Latino Republicans and said Nikki Haley was a Cameron who was trying to hide her Indian heritage. They're voting against their own self-interest. Do they want to live in Gillian? She said, making an off-use reference to the TV series and novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Do we love democracy or not? Because just saying that, it's insulting to the voter, Farrah Griffin shot back. People make decisions about what's right for their families. And the idea that you should have to say for someone else's vote. Hostin and Griffin continued the cross-talk, with Hostin berating women for voting and her view against their own health care. You have a different view on abortion not that long ago, and you evolved on it, Farrah Griffin said. I have that view, Hostin said. Farrah Griffin then asked if Hostin had different views on abortion throughout her life. Why aren't other women allowed to have their own differing perspective on the issue? Hostin has frequently noted that she personally opposed to abortion, but doesn't support banning it out of a belief in the separation of church and state. Co-host Sarah Higgins and Whoopi Goldberg then appeared to be on the same page, both asserting that voters in America vote on the merit of issues and typically do not vote on issues alone. Co-host Joy Behar, who also offered her perspective before a commercial break, stating that voting for a Republican is not just voting for a political party, but it's voting for a cult. The crowd erupted into applause. Hostin has previously discussed her stance on abortion a number of times since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. I don't believe in abortion at any time. I don't believe in any exception to it, Hostin said in late June. That's considering very radical for many people, and that's because I'm Catholic. So this has always been a very difficult decision for me, but it's not difficult for me is the fact that this is activist Supreme Court, and they should not be deciding the laws based on their faith. Other hosts on the show have also claimed that they're pro-life, but have often expressed liberal perspectives on the issue. I would say that I'm rapidly pro-choice, but I'm also pro-life because I don't see a 9-week-old fetus equal to a baby, equal to their mother. Hayes said during the ruling, I'm very pro-life. I've been anti-life. I've never been anti-life. I want people to have the lives they want, but I don't want to force anything on anybody. Well, except the COVID vaccine. My body, my choice, except that. I don't want anybody coming in my house telling me how to raise my daughter and what she is or what she needs because they don't know, Whoopi Goldberg said. Fucking hypocrisy 101 on steroids, my friends. You all remember who Adam Schiff is, right? Adam Shithead is laying the groundwork for a run at the top House Democratic leadership spot should it be vacated by Speaker Nancy Pelosi after the midterms. As a potentially crowded scramble for the top spot is starting to take shape. Pelosi, Democrat California, has not publicly stated that she would step down as the House Democrat leader, whether Democrats keep or lose the majority next week. However, Pelosi has been in charge of the Democrat caucus for 2 decades. and an increasingly progressive caucus appears hungry for new blood at the top. The top three Democrat leaders are all quite old. R Street Institute Senior Fellow of Governance James Warner told Fox News Digital. I think there's a real demand inside the Democrat Party and the Democrat caucus here in the House for a new generation of leadership. Enter Schiff, age 62, who has emerged as a possible contender to replace Pelosi in a field that also included Majority Leader Stanley Hoyer, Democrat, Majority Whip Jim Claiborne, Democrat Caucus Chair Hackman Jeffries, and others. Schiff is laying the groundwork for a run. A House Democrat aide told Fox News Digital. Though the aide said it currently appears Jeffries has more support in his caucus than Schiff does, it's been previously reported that Schiff, who currently serves as House Intelligence Committee Chairman, is interested in the top Democrat spot. Amazing how they wait till Nancy Pelosi has to rush back to California because her husband was attacked by some guy in his underwear. Why, he was in his underwear, by the way. And then they start this plan of action, because chances of her going back to D.C. between now and the election next Tuesday is slim to frickin' none. The Democrat leadership race likely will not come into focus until after midterms, with top party leaders focused on the uphill battle to hold the majority in the chamber. However, Warner and Schiff, the chief impeachment manager in former President Trump's first impeachment, could be in position to bridge support from across the caucus. I think having experience certainly helps with moderates, Wagner said, but the nature of that experience, being an impeachment manager, probably helps with the progressives. As one of former President Trump's chief congressional analysis, whatever the fuck that word means, Schiff also chaired the House Intelligence Committee as it invested Trump's administration through his presidency. He is currently a member of the January 6th committee. Republicans and Trump himself regularly attack Schiff as a bad faith partisan actor. I can't imagine why anybody would attack him. He's such a nice guy. He's such a fucking liar that it's absolute insanity that he's even still there. And that his own party didn't run him out of the fucking White House or out of Washington, D.C. for crying out loud. He's a liar. Adam Schiff is the biggest liar, even more so than Joe, than any other Democrat out there, period. However, in a polarized House, being a partisan deal maker is no longer a serious consideration in leadership elections. A key qualification will likely be a candidate's managerial skills needed to get a diverse and sometimes internally combated Democrat caucus to push all in the same direction. Insert AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib and Anita Presley. That's where the Democrat Party is headed. If he does run, Schiff would have to compete with several other candidates who could mount serious challenges for the top spot. Jeffries, as caucus chair, is a vocal and visible face of the party with 4 years of experience in his current position. Oh, and by the way, he's also racist. He is not gaffe prone. Being 52-year-old and a black man would be a historic choice for Democrats to lead their caucus. Claiborne, 82, also black, is not discussing his future plans. However, he has plenty of experience and is hitting the campaign trail for fellow Democrats like someone who is not riding off into the sunset just yet. In recent weeks, he has paid visits to Democrats in competitive states and at least Indiana, North Carolina, and Ohio. Hoyer, 83, is maintaining a whirlwind campaign schedule, visiting 66 districts in 27 states this cycle. He has also raised and contributed $14.2 million to support House Democrats in the midterms. but Hoyer also is not committed to his future plans. Fox News' Chad Pergram pressed him on the issue in September, but Hoyer would not address his post-midterm plans. They both have their own basis to support. This is something Hoyer has wanted for a very long time. Warner said of Hoyer and Claiborne, it's just, has the moment passed by them? Other political experienced candidates to lead Democrats include Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark, Democrat in New York, and House Democrat Caucus Vice Chair Pete Aguilar, Democrat California. Clark is 59, Aguilar is 43. House Progressive Caucus Chair Pramila Jayapal, Democrat Washington, could also have a strong contendency among the party's left flank if it chooses to run. I think your fire-breathing progressives, I'm not sure who that is, but it wouldn't surprise me to have a candidate come out and make a run, Waller said. That impacts the race dramatically in and of itself. Representative for Clark, Aguilar, Pelosi, Hoyer, Jeffries, Schiff, Jayapal, and Claiborne did not provide comments for this story. Today is Thursday. Then there's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then the most important election in your lifetime, my friends. I will do my normal show on Tuesday, as I normally do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, except this one will be a special election coverage, and we will cover the election results as they come in. If I have to be sitting here for 1 hour or 5 hours, we're going to cover step by step each election and what the results are. And I'm praying that at a minimum, Republicans take back the House and send Nancy Pelosi packing her bags back to fucking California and put all those Democrats and liberal Democrats in check. I cannot express the importance of next Tuesday's elections. Finally, if we win back the House, we have Republicans, some that have been right here on this show that you watched, commit to investigating all the criminal activity that the Department of Justice and the FBI allowed Democrats to get away with over the past several years, and to also investigate and hold hearings on the FBI and the Department of Justice. Some of them have already come out and spoken and put Director Wray and that fucking idiot up at the Department of Justice, Garland, on notice that you're fired if we win back the House. I, for one, will hold them accountable to that. I, for one, will be very vocal if Republicans slip up one freaking time, because I'm sick of it when Republicans do get control of shit and they fuck it all up, or they don't do what we, the people, sent them to Washington, D.C. to do. That day is over with. It is time for change. It is time that everybody in America be treated equally, especially when it comes to our justice system. And it is time that people be held accountable for their horrible actions. So at a minimum, it is very important that we win back the House. If we win back the Senate, we can finally put a nail in this and end this chaotic freaking disaster that this administration is leading us down. Because if we don't, there's no saving this shit, my friends. It's just not going to happen. Trump tried. Look what they put him through for 4 years. They fucked up his entire presidency. They literally fucked it all up to where he had to spend unlimited, just hours and hours and hours protecting himself and trying to fight their baseless claims of bullshit. Not one thing that the Democrats spent your money on had any merit, nor did it stand up in a court of law. That being said, we do not know what the outcome of Mar-a-Lago is going to be, but we will find out. And it is unbelievably important that you vote Tuesday, if you haven't already voted, and that you get your family and your friends off their ass and they go vote too. We must show up in massive amounts at the polls on Tuesday. That is a must to save this democracy, to save we the people, to save American patriots that are under attack, to save our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights, hell, to save our Constitution that is being shit on by those that are up there in Washington, D.C. right now. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. If you haven't already done so, please go to DouglasDucote.com, check out the website, and join me back here Tuesday night, election night, for my special election night coverage. And we will walk through this entire process, and hopefully at the end of the show, we'll all be happy, or we won't. It's going to go one way or the other. And it's up to God. God's will, and God's will in you to do the right thing on Tuesday. Also, go to the other YouTube channel I started called Charlie Hotel 47. Check it out. That YouTube channel will only be pictures and videos that I've personally taken or been taken of me in combat operations across the globe, as well as museums and things that I've toured that I've been able to and been blessed to be able to see that I want everybody else to be able to see as well. Those that can't travel for whatever reasons, be it financially or family or work, I've been blessed to be able to do that, and I continue to do that to this day. And I want to share that with you. I want you to be able to see those things that I've seen. And also, my hope is that you will share that with your future generations. You'll share it with children. You'll share it with young adults to let them see these things that make us who we are, our core values, our principles, our morals. They're very, very important. Thank you. God bless you. And I will see you Tuesday right here for election night coverage. Thank you, everybody. Good night.